Yeah, trendsetter, whoa, league of my own, it don't get better. No, read what I wrote, I'm a bestseller. Yeah, reach for my goals, hit it dead center, hit it dead center. Bullseye, hit it the most, is no misses. Something like fish in a barrel, it's no different. Blindfold on me, I still got the most vision.
Okay, guys, welcome to another episode of the Carnivore Evolution podcast. Now, the one thing I love about doing these podcasts is I get to meet a lot of people from all over the world. But the one person I haven't interviewed yet is anybody from Australia. And that's going to change today. Today's guest is all the way from Australia. I know it's a little bit late over there for him at the moment, but he's kindly decided to come on with us. The guy's name is Theon. He's also a carnivore coach. I also have Duncan coming on. Duncan has kindly agreed to co-host some of our shows, which we're absolutely thrilled about. So with that in mind, we're all going to get started. So Theon, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Mark. I'm good. Thanks for having me, Mark. I really appreciate the opportunity to get my story out there and share it to the world. I think it is a bit of an interesting story, actually. And, you know, if you want, I can dive right into it.
Yeah, so we're going to talk everything carnivore shortly, but give me some backstory on you first.
Okay. To summarize, you know, I don't want to be here for hours, obviously, you know, take too much time up. But basically, it started when I was a kid, and I actually had quite a bit of gut issues on and off. And, you know, I'd find myself having maybe constipation, like randomly, you know, or not all the time, intermittently, you know, sometimes I would have gut pain, actually. And I still remember to this day that I was about 11 years old, 10 or 11, and I actually told my mum. I said, Mum, I want to go vegetarian because every time I eat meat, my gut can't handle it. So I'm pretty much a testament that, you know, even if you got, you know, issues eating meat, so all the vegans out there that actually went vegan in the first place because their gut couldn't handle it, they can't blame the meat, right? They're going to blame their gut issues. And it goes pretty deep, I found. You know, soon I'll get into that later, but I've actually discovered I had gallstones. And that was causing a lot of my issues, that I couldn't actually break down these animal fats and these fatty meats, and you know, even things like nuts would give me a gallbladder attack and tremendous pain, right? So it's been quite a journey to figure these things out. I had to sort of become my own doctor. You know, growing up, I've had other issues, not just gut issues. But I can't, you know, tell my full story today. You know, we'll be here forever, but I want to hit a few key points. I think the main points today I want to hit on are the digestive issues, because that's my sort of specialty in helping people transition, you know, from maybe more of a plant-based diet, coming from veganism even, and going, you know, to more animal-based carnivore. And it's just sad because a lot of people, like I said before, they went to that direction in the first place because they couldn't actually handle it. They'd get pain, they get, you know, they feel nauseous, their stomach couldn't handle it. But I'll tell you what, guys, you know, whoever's watching who's got gut pains every time they have, like, you know, fatty foods and stuff, the gallbladder might be a big player, a big link to that. And even in TCM, look at Chinese medicine, you know, regardless of the herbs for a moment, just take a look at the diagnostic principle. That has been a big, a tremendous viewpoint for me to actually to look at all these issues I've got. You know, I did all the scans. I went down the Western medicine route and did all the scans. And look, I have a lot of respect for Western medicine. Like, you know, doctors save lives. You know, look at emergency hospitals at the moment and all that. I was on the verge of having sepsis a couple of years ago. If I didn't take antibiotics, you know, I could have died. So I have a lot of respect for that. But when it comes to these long-term chronic issues that, you know, they scan for, like, for instance, I was going in for gallbladder pain and they did an ultrasound and it came out clear. And they said, mate, it's all in your head. You know, the scans came back clear. You got nothing in your gallbladder. But then I went to a college, not even fully certified practitioners of Chinese medicine, acupuncturists, and fourth-year students told me, mate, look, your gallbladder's pretty much messed up, liver gallbladder issues. And that was just a few minutes of doing a pulse diagnosis reading that takes a few minutes. So, you know, I think we can't write off these ancient principles that have been around for a long time, guys, you know. And unfortunately, you know, as we all know, you know, you guys are very wise and smart, I'm sure. There's a lot of corruption in this world. So, you know, they're not just going to let these things overrule and replace these other prescriptions. You know what I mean? So
Mm.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is something I hear all the time when I interview these people. It was all in your heads. That's the one thing I
Mm, mm,
always
mm.
get off people. It literally, no matter who I get on, they're always told that this is just fantasy. It's all in your head. There's no issues
Yeah.
whatsoever. And I'm glad you're on today, Duncan, because your wife was in a similar situation, wasn't she? She was a vegan for over 30 years, and
Over 30 years, yeah, when I
Wow.
met her over a year ago. I looked at her and she was complaining about those typical ailments, and you can often look at them and suddenly say, do you know, we could fix this quite easily with just a change
mm,
of the way you're eating, but you couldn't
mm,
go straight in with that. And we are just talking about it again this morning. She says the transformation in this last 12 months
mm,
is incredible. And she was very
yeah,
fortunate. She took plenty of photographs on this journey. But then,
mm,
Theon, so you went into the vegan route first, did you? And then you identified this gallstone issue. Where did you go next in your journey?
Okay, so pretty much. Okay, what happened was it was a long process. It wasn't. It was basically. So I hit 18 years old, right? I was having. We can talk about this later if you guys want to talk about this because I think it's important. I was born with a heart problem. And Wolff Parkinson White. So it's like an electrical issue of the heart. And so when I was 11 years old, I was playing soccer, at recess in school. And for the first time in my life, I was known to be a very fit athlete. I was the fastest kid in my school. Everyone knew me as I was the guy, that no one could beat. Sprinting, athletic sports day events. I was the guy, right? But then for the first time in my life, I ended up on the ground nearly passing out because my heart was redlining beyond 200 beats per minute, going into tachycardia,
Yeah.
and went straight to the hospital after that. And, I was basically diagnosed with Wolff Parkinson White. Wolff Parkinson White is the three doctors that discovered this type of problem. It's basically an extra nerve in the heart that, if you push yourself to the limit, it basically short circuits. So going to tachycardia, you can pass out. Some people have died in certain rare conditions. It's been an issue I've had over the years, and carnivore has actually taught me how powerful carnivore is, not just because of the ketogenic states that I've experienced in and out, but more so just the elimination of plant toxins in general,
mm,
causing heart palpitations over the years, feeling unwell a bit. I would have maybe look, I'll just be sitting in the car sometimes and I'll just have like heart flutters for no reason, just like weird, irregular heartbeats. And that's just like experienced that over a lifetime, and connecting the dots of what type of foods I've been eating, and maybe that could change the way my heart feels. And to answer your question, Duncan, yeah, veganism, I gave it a bash around 22 years old. I hit 22. Not so much the heart issues. I actually had joint issues from 18 years old. So I had joint
mm,
inflammation. So I'm thinking, oh, what am I going to do to try to cure this, to reverse this? So, unfortunately, I picked the vegan route. It's funny, guys, because you know what? I was telling one of the girls the other day in the carnivore community that I actually came to a fork in the road, right? At 22 years old, I had two options: to go down the vegan route, do all the detoxes, all the cleanses and all that stuff, which are all well and good, but from a certain point, it's just, it does damage to the body, right? These long-term diets. Or I could have went down the animal-based carnivore route,
mm,
which I actually heard about, but I was so stubborn in my ways. I thought, no, that's bullshit. That can't be. We're eating raw meat. That's crazy, right? So if only I had actually, this is 10 years ago. So if only I went down that road, things could be different. But at the same time, it's the butterfly effect, right? So you can't really hate where, like I might not even be here today talking to you guys. I might be dead. I might be, things we don't know how the butterfly effect changes things. Not dead from a heart attack, but just dead in terms of life events, right?
mm.
So it's veganism took me through fruitarianism at one stage, and that was for 3 months straight, and I lost 12 kilos of muscle, believe it or not. So that was crazy. So
And tell and tell and
I've
tell
done it
me
all.
and tell me this, Theon. Was this pushed on you, or did you have to figure this out all yourself?
Look, Mark, I want to give credit to a man. I can't blame him. He didn't force me at all. But there's a guy, you probably heard of him on the internet, called Dr. Robert Morse, Morse. He does help people in America, with these cleansing principles and stuff. But I just got obsessed with this channel, and I just, went down that rabbit hole too much. And I just kind of thought, oh yeah, this is the answer to curing my joint issues. But my joint issues never got cured. They never got reversed until I tried the carnivore diet about 6 years later. Things changed forever. I couldn't believe it. Like, it was, I remember it's actually 3 years ago to the month. I started carnivore like properly 3 years ago in spring, in September, 3 years ago exactly. And I couldn't believe it. I gave it a good hard bash for 4 months straight. I didn't cheat, not even once. And look, I did have maybe some seasonings and stuff that wasn't completely 100% strict, but in terms of the purposes of ketogenic carnivore, all I had was meat, fish, and a bit of eggs, but my gut doesn't really agree with eggs. And I was off milk for 4 months straight, because that's been a bit of an addiction of mine. For you who have heard milkaholic, recovering milkaholic. So, but it's been a journey, guys. And I'd tell you what, like, carnivore has been a big player of my inflammation. And at the same time, though, there are nuances I've found, and I'm sure you guys have found as well. I'm a bit of an outlier, I think, in terms of sensitivity. You see, I can have a bit of cheese, and that could actually give me inflammation if I'm not careful. The wrong types of cheese. If I have certain types of cheese, I'm fine. But then the wrong types of cheese. So certain people have different nuanced sort of sensitivities, I've found. And that's what my job is to do as a health coach, to help people problem solve these things, because it can be a bit of a nightmare. Like, I was living with my uncle a few years ago, and I told him, because he was telling me, he had maybe a couple of joint inflammation issues at the time, and I'm like, you just got to see what food you're eating, and see maybe, like, this is before carnivore, this is like years ago, right? And I said, maybe certain foods are giving you inflammation, right? Maybe causing you to be more injury prone in the gym and stuff like that. And then, you just got to eliminate things slowly. And he's like, yeah, but if I did that and I tracked all the foods I was eating and, eliminating and reintroducing him, I'll go nuts. And I nodded at him, and I'm like, welcome to my world for the past 10 years, pretty much. So, it's for all the people out there with food sensitivities, I do empathize and sympathize completely. It can be a nightmare, but that's just what I've been doing, and I'm used to it now. So I know what foods have stuffed me up, what foods have increased vitality and strength in my body. And I think, definitely the carnivore I've definitely reached that point of amazing benefits, So,
So talk us through those first few months of going full carnivore.
Okay.
What did you notice? What sort of improvements did you notice first?
Okay, so this is where it gets a bit complicated, guys, and this is where I come in with my very niche type of experience here. You see, I want to help people. I want to be known, and I'm obviously new to the carnivore community recently, Mark, as you know, and I'm very grateful that the guys brought me in. And I think I have a very special place to help new carnivores, beginner carnivores that maybe still have some issues digestively, maybe still have some gut issues, and because I know what they went through. You see, the first few months, Duncan, what actually happened was I actually didn't feel good at all. And there's a reel that Max German did, I think, a couple of weeks ago or something. And what he says is usually the microbiome takes time to adjust. And it
does.
And Joe Rogan, I think, was having a good laugh about explosive diarrhea and all that. Yeah, that's all well and good. And Max talks about the microbiome adjusting to that over a couple of weeks, and even he talks about the gallbladder, which is very important, right? But, and it's a big but, guys, and I want to say that for 2 weeks that Max said that it will take for the average person to adjust, and maybe the diarrhea will subside. That's mainly for the majority. For myself, I had to put up with that crap, excuse the pun, for many months, guys. Like this, I still had explosive diarrhea months after, but I didn't give up. That's the point.
Good.
I did not give up, and but at the same time, you can say I gave up temporarily because I had to turn, sometimes you got to turn left before you go right. So I hit the 4-month mark. I felt amazing, and I had to transition though. Like I had to eat more leaner meats, like kangaroo meat, things like venison and stuff like that. Maybe leaner fish, because the fatty meat. Every time I have a lamb roast, even or even a
Of
fatty cut
course.
of beef, my gallbladder would have either a gallbladder attack, or I'd feel nauseous. I'd feel kind of sick to the stomach. I'd get pain, or I just get diarrhea later that day, or intermittently periods of the day. Even butter, even have a little bit of butter would just
Mm.
spark off like huge amounts of spouts of diarrhea.
Yeah.
So I couldn't believe it. So I thought, actually, you know what? I'm like, nah, this can't be right. Carnivore can't be right. But something said, deep inside, something told me, just keep with it. So I came across a mate. He's a good friend of mine, Toby Yo, and he told me it just, I don't know, the stars had aligned. Now, this isn't necessarily carnivore, but I think this is important for people to see as a holistic approach, because I don't really know how long it would have taken my gallbladder to adjust if I didn't do this, which is called a liver gallbladder flush, if you guys have heard of it before.
Yeah.
So basically what happens is you go off all fat for a few days straight, and then you shock the gallbladder with a huge amount of fat from olive oil, in this case a bit of lemon juice and olive oil. You mix it, you smash it back, you lay on your side, you go to bed, and what that does, that contracts the gallbladder like never before. It gets a massive shock, and it just has to squeeze to try to emulsify all that olive oil that there's probably about 120 mil of olive oil. It just, it's hard to slam down. It tastes really bad. I almost threw up a couple of times. So something like that will actually purge the gallbladder. And the first time I did this, guys, oh my God, I was in so much pain. My gallbladder, I don't know what was happening. And the next day was going to blow you away, because, you're going to see some reels over these next few weeks or months that I'm going to be posting. But the beauties I popped out, I could not believe it. I thought, like, I sent it to my friend Jackie, and she's like, "Wow, you gotta start, selling these things at a crystal store." I popped out these green jade crystal looking gallstones the size of a Brazil nut, multiple. I couldn't believe it, but at the same time, I was in so much excitement and awe that I was like, "Oh my God, this is what was causing my digestive issues for all these years." It was one of the most exciting days of my life. This is about 2 years ago. This actually when I hit 30 years old. So it was actually a really amazing 30th birthday present, because this really explained all the issues I was having. I never knew I had these stones. I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Incredible story. So then,
It's
in regards to
insane.
the joint pain and things, then have you noticed that the joint pain has recovered and
Duncan,
gone away?
it's been a game changer. With the joint pain, you see, when I was 18, I hit 18, and I had all these weird joint issues that just had come out of nowhere. You see, as I told you, as a kid, athletics and sprinting wasn't just that, but I've always loved sports. I've always been competitive. So growing up as a kid, a lot of soccer, a lot of athletics, a lot of, all that stuff, judo, jiu-jitsu, my parents taking us, my dad got us into all that, which I love. I haven't done it in a while. It's about time I go back into it. But the point is, I've always been accustomed to knowing my body, knowing my limits, knowing how to push my boundaries and stuff. And the thing I want you to understand is, I never really got injured as a kid. It was just rare. It was a rare thing, rare occurrence. But then 18, bang, everything changed. It was like an overnight change, where I'd literally be walking down the street sometimes for no reason with a limp in my step, because maybe my hip had flared up or something, or I felt like an old man. And I was 18, going into my early 20s. For those few years, I had all these issues. And thanks to my naturopath at the time, he told me, "Yeah, mate, you're gluten intolerant." So that was the first step. The whole gluten thing was the first stage. When I was 18, discovered, I was gluten intolerant. Then I dropped that. And then eventually I dropped the other foods, and then went into veganism, 22. And then, like I said, fruitarian. But for the most part, like I told you, my joints didn't actually they got worse at one stage. Like, all the inflammation, because even to this day, which I rarely do, I still have some fruit, but rarely, right? Maybe on a seasonal, basis, once every couple months, right? Every 2 or 3 months, I have some fruit. but it's a good wake up call for me because, you know, a couple of weeks ago I had some oranges that a family friend dropped off, and I thought, oh, I'll just have a few oranges. I was in pain for 2 days after that. I had all these sharp pains in my joints and stuff. So unfortunately, citrus fruit have been a bit of a kryptonite for me. But having said that, some of my reels I talk about lemon juice helping things like the gallbladder. So it can be a double-edged sword. People transitioning to the carnivore diet, you might have to squeeze a bit of lemon juice now and then in some water to help with the gallbladder, help emulsify those fats that you can't. You know, it took me months, guys, to transition to have a stronger gallbladder in the sense that now I can actually, you know, this morning I woke up, you know, beautiful sun. I was in the sun. I put the flame on outside and the gas stove and cooked up a feed of nice lamb, you know, half a kilo of lamb. I just cooked it up. I couldn't do that 2 years ago. If I even had a bit of fatty, if I even looked at some fatty lamb, I'd literally just be cringing. I would literally get a gallbladder attack just by looking at it, right? But now I felt fine. I felt amazing, and you know, I had some milk today. I was cold turkey for 5 weeks and just gone back onto it for a little bit, and then maybe I'll just go cold turkey off for a bit. But I think the major gallbladder issues that I've found that for people watching potentially is you got to fix the gallbladder, man, and it's a long process. It's not an overnight change. For some people, like, you know, like Max says, it might be 2 weeks, but for the minority of people like myself, it's a long-term project. It took me 8 months. Yeah.
Yes. See, Bart Kay says this an awful lot on his show that when you look at the healing process, if you've been literally doing this for over 20 years and you've been damaging your gut microbiome for over 20 years, it can probably take the same amount of time to heal. And that's what I see with people at the moment when you're trying to fix the gut microbiome and get it back normal and function the way it is. It can take, I only see the improvements after pretty much 6 months. I feel that someone has to do this for a minimum of 6 months before you have that complete reset. This is what really annoys me on social media when people do the carnivore diet and they're like, I did it for a week, I did it for a month, it never worked. Of course it didn't fucking work because you didn't give it long enough. You know what I mean? People are absolutely convinced that this is a diet. You just need to go on this diet and that's what's going to help you lose weight. They don't understand that you have to reset the gut. It all starts from the gut because everybody that I speak to always has issues. And it's like, okay, where's the issue coming from? It's coming from the gut. So it affects the mind, affects the body. So once we fix the gut, everything else is going to improve. And this is why I'm constantly saying that. So, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, Mark, go ahead. I was just got something to...
No, this is what I was just going to say. I was just going to finish off. This is the message that I'm always giving people. Let's stop focusing on weight loss to try and improve your health, and let's do it the other way around. We should be healing the body. Yeah, when you heal the body, everything else just falls into place.
Yeah, exactly, Mark. And you know, it's people like us, you know, and look, keep up the great reels, Mark, because I love the fire, man. I love the fire. You know,
it's passionate, isn't it?
More fire. It's sometimes it takes courage to be fiery. You know, like but we have to do it, man, because if we're not putting ourselves out there and telling people, look, this can be transformed. You can change your health. These are the steps that are involved, right? You got to be patient. You be consistent. You might have to make some sacrifices. Some of your favorite foods, you know, like I had to make sacrifices. You know, you don't think, you know, we're all human, right? We all have favorite foods. As a kid, my favorite food was pasta. You know, growing up in a European type family, pasta, lasagna. I love the Italian cuisine. Oh my God. And then later I realized, it took me a few years to realize that, it's these microbes, it's these other organisms in your body that are hijacking your brain, whether it's yeast, whether it's parasites, you know, worms, whether it's candida, things like that. They love to thrive on these fermenting type foods, like the starchy foods, the sugar. So, you know, have you guys heard of a Bicom scan by any chance?
I have, yeah.
I've heard of that too,
You know what? If anybody watching has confusion of where their health and don't know what's going on, they've been to doctors and all that, Bicom scan has been probably the best $250 I've spent in my life because when I was living in Sydney, this is when I'd reached a breaking point. I just had enough of it all. Like I was about maybe 25 25 years old, 26, and I was just like, nah, this is all this plant-based stuff. I feel like crap. I was having all these carbs and sugar. And I was walking, for those familiar with Sydney, I was walking around the Sydney Harbour. It was one night after work, and, it was the light show. And for those familiar with the beautiful light, we lost Mark for a sec. Where'd you go?
Sometimes it's still there, though. Oh, we can hear it.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so okay, so I'm going off a bit of a sort of sidetrack here, but I think it's important because it does marry things together here quite nicely in the end. So just bear with me. So the light show was happening in the Sydney Harbour, beautiful light shows, and it's flooded with people. Thousands of people would flock to the beautiful light projections onto the old buildings and stuff that was built, hundreds of years ago and stuff like that. And I just reached a low in my life. I had all this information. I literally was depressed as hell. Like, I was just like, what am I going to do? Like, I can't, like, I was, at the time I had all these joint issues. I couldn't do what I loved to do at the time, was being competitive in certain sports. Like I said, judo and stuff like that. So I couldn't express that because every time I do these things, I just get injured so easily. Right. Anyway. So, what happened was, this is crazy, a bit of a sidetrack, but it's coming to a point. This vision, I'm like, just give me an answer, right? So so somebody told me to walk down this alleyway, and it had this cool lights. And you know what it had? The light had all these magic mushrooms. Yeah, I'm not even kidding, guys. And I never up until that point, I never did drugs. Not once in my life. I've never did anything really. I was offered weed at parties and shit, but I never did a joint in my life up until that point. Never did any psilocybin, nothing. And my mate at the time, I called him. I was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And it was just a crazy coincidence, if you want to call it that, synchronicity. And he's like, "Oh, bro, guess what I'm doing? I've been picking mushrooms the past couple of days." I'm like, "No way! I just saw this sign from the heavens telling me I should maybe have some mushrooms. Let's go picking next week." So we went, and I had the biggest trip of my life. Like, it was almost life-changing, I think. And the visions I got was pretty crazy. And so one of the visions was telling me about to fast, right? To do OMAD. And fasting really changed my life, doing some intermittent fasting and stuff. So that's when I already knew about fasting, but it hammered it home. It said, "Nah, you just got to keep doing fasting. It's good for you." I knew it was good for me because it would always low inflammation, right? But obviously it wasn't optimal because I was still eating plant foods and carbs and stuff like that. But now, these past couple of years, playing around with carnivore plus fasting, holy crap, it's been a complete game changer, guys. And you guys know how powerful fasting is. And Jonathan Norse Carnivore, our good friend in Norway, he did a 15-day water fast and proved to us that you don't even need to eat basically for 15 days and still feel great. And I did 5 days, which is a third, which is decent, but not as much as him, right? But I felt amazing during that fast. I did, hit a wall towards the end. I was feeling a bit lightheaded, feeling like I was going to pass out, but that was because I wasn't having enough electrolytes in my water, and I decided to do a bit of a dry fast. So that actually, I felt that good, guys, that I actually want to do a 72-hour fast at the end of each month. I reckon I have to be doing that because I felt that amazing. It's just so good.
Good.
I'm the same. I always say this to people, like, if you're going to implement the fast, do it probably once a month. I do this as well. I do a 48-hour fast. Now, I would have never done this in the past when I was eating 6 or 8 meals a day, because I would have been starving. I would have been angry all the time. But now, because I'm adapted, I'm fat adapted, I'm deep into ketosis, I find it so easy. Like, there's days when I'm working like non-stop and I'm like, oh shit, I have to eat. Like, I'm not even thinking about food. It's like, and I'm gone. And that's what I love about this carnivore lifestyle, is that I don't pick any times to eat. I'm going off how my body's feeling. So when I wake up in the morning, I wake up every morning at 3 a.m. without fail. And I'm doing earrings, I'm doing content, I'm walking the dog, I'm cleaning the home, I'm getting my partner's meals ready, my daughter's meals ready. Wow. I'm going to the gym, and literally I've done all this in a 9-hour gap, and I won't have my first meal till around 1 o'clock. And I'm completely relaxed about it. Completely relaxed. There's no issues. And I'm in the changing rooms listening to these guys at like 6 a.m. in the morning. They're like, what are we having for breakfast? What they're starving. They're getting. You can hear. You can feel the tension. It's like, geez, I have to eat. I have to eat. You see all these people having bananas and all this, and you can see all these people. Like this is what really annoys me about people when they talk about that carbohydrates are the main fuel source. You see all these people
Yeah.
going into the gym with the Lucozade bottles. They're drinking caffeine all during their workouts, and I'm like, do you not see the hypocrisy here? You're walking into the gym. You're telling me that carbohydrates are the main source of energy. I'll see people snacking on jellies, snacking on fruits, snacking on energy drinks, all at 6 a.m. in the morning. And then after their workout, they're having these dextrose drinks or oats, and it's not like a half an hour later. It's like immediately after the workout. You'll see them all in the change rooms. They're all eating their food, and they're all panicking. I'm like, holy shit. And then you look at the younger crowds. Again, the nutrition, unbelievably bad. They're having the whey proteins, the protein bars. It's absolutely insane. And this is the one thing I see with the younger crowd is there's a lot of hate going on. You ever notice that? With the 16-year-olds, the 18-year-olds, they're always fighting each other. You can see it. There's always that conflict. You can clearly see it. And I only did a video on this the other day. There's so much hate going on in the world at the moment. But when we look at the one thing that we should be looking at, which is what we're feeding the brain, nobody actually looks at it at all. Nobody.
Oh, Mark, you're definitely right on the money there, and
It's mental.
you know, well, look, I mean, even the whole gut-brain axis thing, that's so underrated. Look, it's good that it's come to the spotlight a bit, but it's still underrated, very much so, because with my experience, geez, I mean, like what you eat really does have an impact of a direct impact to your brain. And you know, if you're eating shit all the time, look, some people can eat crap and junk food and still be okay, right? But that's kind of like, you know, not everyone. You know, a lot of people out there, there's a direct link to how you feel, your mental state, emotional state, and you know, what you eat. If you're eating shit all the time, if you're eating not even shit, but you know, supposedly healthy food, you're having a lot of plant toxins, for instance. If you're chowing down nuts all day, like I used to, you know, you mentioned oats for breakfast before, Mark. I would tell you now, and linking this with what Duncan asked me before, I haven't completely answered him about the joint thing. Some of my worst times of injury in my entire life have been when I've eaten these grains and nuts and legumes. Yeah. Yeah, it could not be a coincidence, because every
Yeah.
time I would eat something that either the night before, the day before, is still in my system, or that same day before doing a workout or whatever. I tell you, I've had some of the worst injuries of my life, and not even just injuries, but just inflammation in general, pain because of these nuts, because of these grains from oats. You know,
Yeah.
bread and all
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
oats is definitely a kryptonite for me. And things like legumes, believe it or not, for people who think that healthy legumes, oh, you get you know, a nice, you know, I'm half Greek. For those, just quickly, for the Greeks out there, you know, there's the lentil soup. Like, oh, if I had a lentil soup and did a workout, there'd be a high chance of me either doing a sprain that will be out of action for a couple of weeks, or actually getting badly injured. I couldn't believe it, you know.
And that's something that, sorry, Duncan, that's something that I want to jump on real quick, is that everybody's convinced that if we just eliminate processed food, that's going to automatically fix the problem. Because when I ask the average person, okay, how are you feeling? And they're like, well, I don't feel great, but I just want to get in shape. And I'm like, okay, well, what's your diet like? And they're like, oh, my diet's fine. My diet's absolutely fine.
Mm.
That's not the issue. And I'm like, well,
Yeah,
that's not the question I asked. I want to know what your diet is. I want you to tell me what you're eating from the first meal to the last meal. And before they even
yeah.
open their mouths, you know exactly what it is straight away. And then when you go back and say, well,
Mm.
listen, when you go back and give them the information and say, listen, okay, you need to do this. This is the strategy you need to do. Honestly, just trust me on this. They're looking at you and saying, no, I can't do that. Now, this is what really annoys me, because these people will say, I'm tired. I've no energy. I'm in pain.
Yeah,
The list
all the
goes on and
time.
on and on, on and on and on. And it's like, well, you're in pain. You know you're in pain. You're telling me you're on a healthy diet, but you're on medication at the same time. Plus, you're spending a fortune on supplements every month. So you need to ask yourself the question: are you really healthy? And then it gets them thinking. They're like, maybe you're right. And I'm like, and I never force this on people. I'm just saying, okay, what I'm just going to say to you is just go home and try it. Give it at least 90 days. That's all I'm saying. Cut it all out, cut everything out, or even do it on a phase basis. I always say do it on a phase basis. Eliminate the processed food probably for 2 weeks. Then after that, eliminate the carbohydrates for another 2 weeks. Eliminate the vegetables another 2 weeks, and then let's see where you are. 90% of people get back to me and saying, Jesus, Mark, I feel great. I feel amazing. I feel fantastic. You know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, well, there you go. You know what you need to do. So now you just need to keep going. Why would you go back to what you class eating healthy when you know that that's what's causing the problems in the first place? And if we can just explain this to people and say, well, when you say healthy diet, what do you class as healthy diet? When we look in the world at the moment, everybody classes a healthy diet where you can eat like 80% of your overall caloric intake coming from grains, carbohydrates, vegetables, lean sources of protein, and then you can have 20% of eating whatever you want. Okay? Then you have the other side that will say, no, we need to go down the vegan route, or we need to go down the high protein route. But then when you ask these people, okay, you're doing all this, but how are you feeling? I feel like shit. You know what I mean? So where's the balance? Like, how do we actually win this? How do you actually convince people that what you're doing at the moment is not working? The moderation is not working. The vegan is not working. Going on a diet all the time is not working. Something has to change, guys.
Yeah, and I think it's like, like you said, sometimes it's hard to actually make people see that this is even like a real thing. They're, oh no, that can't be right. That's, these are healthy foods. That look at the food pyramid, right? This is healthy things. And hey, look, there's obviously shades of grey. There's obviously shades of grey here, as we all know, right? There's look at the extreme end of things. You got like things like certain plants in the wild. If you have enough of those plants, you would probably get hospitalized or die. Even things like raw spinach, as we all know, you eat a couple of kilos of that, you're probably going to, look into some kind of kidney failure or something. And then you got nuts, all that. So all on that end of the spectrum. But you got the other end of the spectrum. You got things like iceberg lettuce and some rocket, which maybe doesn't have an oxalates in it. So obviously, there's different shades of gray here. People are going to be much healthier eating on that side of things, but for the most part, most people eat a lot of grains, a lot of grains, leafy greens, nuts. But even if they don't eat that, they're still eating these processed foods like cereals, fried in crap anyway. So you can't really escape. Even if you're eating a balanced diet, you're still going to have all these things that are going to interfere with microbiome, gut-brain axis, the seed oils. We're talking about high processed sugar. It's you can't really escape it in this day and age. You go down the shopping aisle today, all these ingredients. Some people just give up. They can't even be bothered reading all the things because there's like 50 ingredients, right? So you got to sort of be stubborn and say, no, I'm not having that crap. I'm just eating whole foods. So I think it is shifting, Mark, which is great. People are starting to wake up, and then it's obviously our job to get on these podcasts and stuff and talk to people like about this because, we have to motivate people that if they really care about their health, then this is a long-term project. If you will, let's say nothing happens to you and you will live a long life, wouldn't you want to optimize that? Wouldn't you want to,
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
The whole excuse I hear from people, I've heard all my life, and you guys have probably heard the same thing. Oh, but YOLO, you only live once. You just got to enjoy, live a little, like, yeah, you get maybe the occasion, no doubt, but on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, you're just going to run yourself into the ground at a faster rate than and even if you got good genetics. There's some people out there say, oh, but I eat bad and I still feel good. Yeah, but until what point? How many years? How many decades down the road until you have you wake up one day, you have a pleasant surprise, you go to the doctor, and not mentioning any names, but Big C might come up on a scan, or you have a big surprise. You felt so good up until that point, but it's like a ticking time bomb. You don't even know what's going to hit you and when. So,
I think personally, people are fearful. Do you see the fear in their eyes when Mark probably suggests to them that they remove that from the diet or take this away? And say, oh, you can't take away my bread, you can't take away my sugar. because it's an addiction, as we know.
Mm.
But this fear in the face, and I actually see it as you're actually not taking away from anything from them. You're actually giving it back. You're giving them freedom. The fasting gives them freedom, and the health gives them freedom to be able to do so much more. But it's that not being able to see it. It's almost like a veil put over. But if we've been told these lies, these myths all our life, and we've bought into this narrative, they're very reluctant to change their mindset. Very reluctant. And that's what as like you were saying there, Theon, just chipping away a little bit, whether it's podcasts, whether it's a written word or whatever we're trying to do, that message we're trying to get across. And even when we stand in front of them, looking like you've 10 years younger than you are fit and healthy and no ailments, they still can't see it, or they don't want to see it. I think that's half the problem.
Yeah, I think the problem is you need to understand you have it.
Can I
I was just going to say, Duncan, I think people need to realize that they have a problem in the first place. I think that most people don't understand that. I think the most important thing is that that's why I always say to people, like, you must give yourself at least 6 months and then experiment, add these foods back in. So that way you can actually notice, oh shit, like I actually never noticed this before. But when we all know this, when we all become fat adapted and we're in ketosis, the minute we add those foods back in, it's like you can feel it straight away. I know for me, when I experimented over the years,
because you're working so clean.
Yeah, I've added all the foods back in that I enjoyed over the years. I experimented on myself so many times, and I was like, listen, no, that's a box ticked. I'm not doing that again. Like, because you feel it, like it affects you mentally, physically, emotionally. You can feel the pains, you can feel the joint pain. I can notice it when I'm in the gym. The DOMs kick back in again. It's like, no, geez, I don't want that. And then your sleep as well. And then you're getting angry, you're getting moody, and then you're getting the cravings. And it's like, no, I like the way I am right now, where I'm not getting that angry feeling around food anymore. I don't have my anxiety anymore. I'm not going through depression anymore. So I'm like, you know what? No, that's a box ticked. And for me now, I don't think I can ever be a moderator anymore. For me in my life at the moment, I have to be an abstainer. I have to just stick to what I know is best for my body. Now, there's other people out there that are going to be like, I have a few friends that are in the carnivore space, and they can get away with it. They're metabolically flexible. They can eat the fruits and they can eat the vegetables. And I don't have any issues with that because we're all different. But for me personally, and what I went through in my life, I cannot moderate this shit anymore. I have to stick to what I know is best for my body. And I think people need to understand that you have to give this a minimum 6 months before you actually know what's right and what's wrong with your food.
Yeah, and look, I think 6 months is a very realistic number, Mark, and it might seem hard for some people. Oh, yeah, I can't do carnivore for 6 months, but I think it's also the transitional process that even Bart Kay talks about as well. He reckons at least 4 to 6 weeks of transitioning. That's pretty fair. Let the body adjust, right? Some people, what happens is they jump into carnivore because they get so excited, and they get so passionate. Oh, they go down a rabbit hole you're looking at videos and online, and that's all well and good. That's great, right? That's great to have a new spark of interest for the carnivore diet and to help their certain health conditions. But if you jump in deep, let's say you come from a standard American diet all your life, let's say, and then you just get a sudden spark of passion to get into the carnivore diet, and you don't even transition to it, and you just jump right in there and you start eating meat every day. There's in my eyes, in my experience, there's a high chance you're going to run into issues, not necessarily, I'm talking about more so like digestive issues here, because in my experience, I mean, look, some of these people are so backed up, colonically speaking, in their colon, so backed up all this crappy processed crap, all their life they've been eating, all these gluey, starchy, processed carbs they've been eating all their life. So they've got all that stuff cemented on the walls of their colon, probably obstructing certain sections of it. You got the switch between the transverse colon and the descending and all that. Usually people get issues with those pockets, right? Those switches. And then you go and have a load of meat out of nowhere. You've been plant-based all your life, and like that meat isn't even digested because your gallbladder, your stomach acid isn't even strong enough to break it down, you're going to have issues. You're going to probably have blockages, and then people do actually end up in hospital. And then the doctors ask him, "Oh, what have you been doing?" "Oh, I've been doing the carnivore diet. Just started it." Of course, you're going to bloody have issues, And then the people they blame the carnivore diet. Well, you got to transition. You got to take at least a month or two to transition to these to carnivore if you've had a life of eating crap all your life, right? It
Yeah,
takes time, and I think that's more my
it's a massive shock to the system. All three of us can definitely agree with that. I know for me personally, when I did this at the very, very beginning, I was like, my God, like, am I ever going to be off the toilet? I was on the toilet like literally 3 weeks nonstop, and I was like, okay, this is not normal. I was going like some days nearly 2 or 3 times a day, and I was like, this is not normal. And I was I was really worried about my health. I was like, okay, I'm going to lose a lot of weight doing this, a lot of weight, because I didn't understand how the body setup worked. And it wasn't until I actually started researching this and started listening to the likes of Ken Berry and Shafee and saying, like, listen, your body's just detoxing. It's just it's natural. Your body's just healing. Eventually, your body will just stop doing this and it will just adapt to this food. And that's the one thing I always explain to people when they do carnivore at the beginning. You need to be prepared for this. You're going to get a massive shock to the system. This is when you're going to be like, okay, do I continue doing this or do I stop doing this? And I always say, listen, you've got to be prepared for this. And when you do, like what you mentioned at the very beginning, Theon, is like you have to be prepared. It's probably going to take 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's probably going to take 4 months, but just keep going, because at the end of this, it's going to get so much better, so much. Once you get to the other side of this, trust me, everything in your life just improves.
Oh yeah,
it's life changing.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, what's your story, guys? With I've heard more about Mark's story, but Duncan, what's your story about?
Yeah, so I've been carnivore 7 years, probably even a little bit longer. I had a 2-year keto introduction to it, so it did help a little bit keeping my carbohydrates under 50 grams. And I am in the athletic world, so I compete internationally, and it's really helped me with endurance. But I've noticed over these last several years a huge amount of changes, but not instant changes. These are gradual changes.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about, I'm a lot older than you guys. I'm in my 50s, and I've got less grey hairs. I've got more hair on my head. I've had a dental treatment. I've had no need for it. My skin condition is beautiful. All these things that you consider to be middle-age ailments have gone away. I'm now considered 20 years younger than I was 20 years ago. So it's a beautiful gradual change. Now, when I started on this route, and I've had this discussion with Mark loads of times, I didn't really have any support. I didn't know of anybody else out there. I did it more as an experiment to myself, just to try to discover if I can get endless amounts of energy for endurance athlete, because I was sick of gels every 20 minutes, and then this intestinal problems associated with high carbohydrate intake, and learned this way that actually I could fuel indefinitely. I could fast. I could feel so much better. But I work did until recently, in education. So I'm trying to educate these youngsters, and Mark touched on it before, about the violence and the anger that these guys have. And you see it in their faces. You can see it, and it's in the mind. So I've got a real interest now in how ketones can actually help the mind, not just for antidepressant, but actually to think on a different level. We know our brain waveforms are going to be thinking on a different level. I mean, I've got a couple of questions here for you, Theon, if I can ask them. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
One of them, you talked about your heart earlier on. Yeah. Have you noticed any difference now? Is it anything improved on that with the heart murmurs or whatever you described it as?
So, yeah, like I said, for me, I'm very nuanced, kind of like if I eat like I said, even the wrong type of cheese or anything. But when I think it was the live video call a couple of weeks ago with Dr. Anthony Chafee, and I mentioned, he was talking about rugby players in Sydney and how they've gone carnivore and stuff. And I spoke about my heart problem, and I've never felt better on strict carnivore. Like, you see, if I'm just nothing but strict, when I actually first did carnivore 3 years ago, towards the end of that 4-month period, I experimented with eating. It was actually quite hot. The weather was picking up. South Australian heat, for those who are familiar with it, gets bloody hot here, you know. Even today was pretty hot. I prefer the cold climate. My body just burns hot. Anyway, so at the time I was experimenting with raw meat, and because quite frankly, that's all I could really eat. I mean, if the meat was lamb or beef, it had to be extremely rare or almost raw for me to break it down. If I had like cooked meat at the time, like I said, I'd be on the toilet, I'd get gallbladder issues. But for me, my heart felt the best, and it still does, when I'm having extremely rare meat, raw to rare meat. I don't have raw meat these days, but rarely I'd have it. But my heart, and being an athlete yourself, Duncan, you understand that you're. I mean, us athletes, we have a connection to our body that a lot of people don't, because we know how to push ourselves to the limit, physically, mentally. Heart rate, cardio, everything. So for me, the experiments I've done, my heart has never felt better, never felt stronger when I'm in these extremely strict. Even a bit of milk I can get away with, but I think within the ketogenic parameters,
Yes, yeah.
usually about 20 grams. Usually they say 20, even 50 grams for some people, but for me, a little bit of milk. But strict, even fatty fish, sardines I've been having sometimes. My heart feels amazing. But like I said, when I go off the rail a bit, have maybe too much dairy, too much yogurt, too much cheese, even, I just don't feel optimal. Mentally, physically, my heart, my gut, I get constipated with too much cheese, too much dairy. So I think a lot of people have to realize that carnivore, I'm actually going to do a reel on this soon. I'm thinking of explaining it to a lot of the beginner carnivores out there, because the carnivore in this day and age, it's not really carnivore. You see, I think even Dr. Chafee talks about this. The original carnivore diet was just lion diet, pretty much, And now we've turned it into, you can have some milk, you can have some seafood, you can have some cheese. You know what I mean? So technically, the new age carnivore diet isn't really the carnivore diet. So I think the people getting into this, and they sort of still have issues, and they blame the carnivore diet. It didn't work for me. Well, you might have autoimmune conditions linked to dairy. You might have all these other issues, like even seafood. Some people have shellfish issues. So unless you've tried, like Michaela Peterson, she lives by it because she can't do anything more by the lion diet, nothing but ruminant animals like beef, lamb, all the other ones. Unless you've tried that, then you can't really judge the diet unless you've done that for, like Mark said, 6 months or whatever. But, that's hard for people to stick to that, going that strict for that long, so.
So do you ever take your HRV? Do you ever consider that with your heart rate variation? Is that something you're interested in, the parasympathetic, or do you ever take those metrics? Have you noticed any difference?
I've been told about it, Duncan. I actually haven't gotten into that yet. I want to, but the thing I have been tracking over the years, on and off, I haven't for a while, is the sleep tracker, the amount of sleep. I haven't done it in a while, but I would say now, I do. Yeah, when I'm more strict in carnivore, I do feel more rested. And now the thing is here, this is where it gets interesting, because, and this is where the whole patience comes in, because a lot of people do unfortunately give up, not even on carnivore, but just animal based in general, if they're having more of a ketogenic approach, because it does take, a couple of weeks to adjust your, like you said before, the ketones, for the brain to absorb the ketones and all that. It might take a couple of weeks, and especially if you've had a life of eating carbs and sugar all your life, it might take even longer to get into ketosis on a steady kind of rate. So for me, if I'm in a ketogenic state, I feel most rested, when I'm sleeping and whatever. And look, I don't have perfect sleep all the time. Maybe I've overtrained too much that day, maybe in the sun too much, not enough water, and I'd maybe get a crappy sleep. But for the most part, if I'm pretty ketogenic, having enough protein, having enough fats, having enough calories in that day, my heart rate, like, to answer your question, it feels really steady, it feels really good, and it feels like I can push it believe it or not, Duncan, I think Mark knows this, but I actually just got back from training a very particular type of niche type sport, which is rising up in this day and age. But I do arm wrestling, so
Wow.
yeah.
And you're an
club,
actor.
so,
You're an actor as well,
Yeah,
aren't
so,
you? Look at those guns. Look at those
look at
guns.
them guns,
so I'm
man.
That
So
can't be
it's
from carnivore. That can't be from carnivore. You need carbohydrates to build muscle.
exactly.
I'm going now.
Now, I will say, Mark. Now, it is a bit of a controversial topic, but I think it is worth bringing up for those who, you guys, if you're pro or con, or I'm still on the fence about this whole topic. To be honest, that's why I do teeter, in and out of. I do have some milk now and then, whatever. Go cold turkey for 5 weeks, like I just said. But in my case, the research I've looked into, as you guys know, Dr. Robert Sywes, the South African doctor, speaking about this whole insulin suppression theory for these long-term ketogenic carnivores potentially running into issues there. What's your take on that, if you've heard the theory before?
Well, my theory on it is very, very simple. I just feel like you're never ever going to need. I've been doing this now well over 4 years. It's never going to be an issue for me. And my performance in the gym is it's much better than what it was 20 years ago. I've built more muscle mass than I've ever built in my life going into the gym.
Wow.
So from my perspective, I have seen no changes at all in the 4 years that I've been training. I've actually gotten better in the last 4 years. I've put on a lot of muscle in the last 4. I've tested this shit myself. Because of my age, I'm only putting on probably around 3 to 4 pounds of muscle a year, because I'm in my 50s at the moment. But I know in that 4 years I've gained at least 10 or 12 pounds of muscle. I can see it. I can clearly see it.
Wow.
I can see it in my
Amazing.
pictures, and the same with my performance. I spoke to Duncan about this when we did a podcast a few weeks ago. This guy wanted to do. This guy was a boxer. He was only 21 years of age, and he gave me a challenge. He said, "Right, we're going to go on the Stairmaster, and we're going to do an hour." Now, this guy was only on level 8. I was doing this level 8 with him, and 10 minutes into this, I was like, "This is too easy, way too easy." I bumped that up to level 15, and for the whole thing, I did that for 60 minutes. Never drank one sup of water, not one. This guy was gasping for air. Yeah, this guy's a boxer, an amateur boxer.
Wow.
He fights at a good level. His fitness is immaculate.
Wow.
He walks around ripped to shreds. Guys, honestly, I'm 30 years older than this guy. I blew him apart. And the good thing about it is, we spoke about this on our podcast as well, Duncan. My breathing was completely relaxed. I was able to control my breathing. My heart rate wasn't going like this. I was nice and relaxed, and I was on level 15, and I was able to control that all the way up to 1 hour. And honestly, I could have done another hour after, no problem. So for me personally, I've seen no improvement. I've seen no difference. I think you're better. Duncan will know better than this, because he's an athlete. I've spoken to people that have done marathons, consecutive marathons, on a fast, 3-day fast. They've done 3 marathons, one after another, with no food in their system. It's incredible, absolutely incredible.
So, Theon, I've run half a dozen marathons on a 24-hour fast, and on a water fast as well. I wouldn't recommend that. Water with some electrolytes are much better. But I put on muscle very easily, and I'm often zero carbohydrates. Spend most of my time zero. Maybe the odd couple of grams might crop in from a little bit of milk or something that might have gone into the coffee or something. So, and I will go to the gym. This time of my training now is 8-week block of strength work, but I try to minimize muscle gain, because I've got to get as aerodynamic on that bike as possible. The last thing I want is 2 broad shoulders. But for the swimming, you're going to be putting on the muscle, also for endurance running. So it's just trying to keep the right balance. But if I'm finding that I find it too easy to put on muscle eating this way, that's not a bad sign, is it, really?
No.
If a lot of people who want to gain that muscle, if I'm just trying to ensure it's down. I mean, I said this to Mark a few weeks ago, I remember a guy last year saying to me that, okay, it's all right eating on the carnivore diet, but you do need to burn that fat on a carbohydrate flame.
Yeah.
So you maybe only need a few grams. But I disagree with that. I've experimented, like Mark's experimented, and I've tried it, and I find I am so much faster on a pure carnivore way of eating
100%.
without that carbohydrate flame,
100%. Yeah.
because we still produce that little bit of glucose. We can
Yeah.
still throw our liver for that flame, so-called flame. But it's not
100%.
only my body and my muscle. Not only that, and my breathing and my heart rate 10 beats lower, which is always going to be great for any athlete. My brain, my quickness of thought is right up there. It's beautiful. I get into a fabulous mindset, and I'm just there. And people talk about that beautiful zone of being in the zone in athletics.
Yeah.
And really, I've been there a couple of times with martial arts and stuff, just being in the zone. But that's what I actually put it down to now, is being firing on ketones, is being in that zone, because I'm almost at a different time to everybody else I'm competing
100%.
against.
I
could feel as though I could slow it down. Sorry.
Sorry, Duncan. I'm just going to add one more point.
Yeah.
Like 4 years, Theon, I competed in my first ever bodybuilding competition. I always said I would never do a bodybuilding competition if I was eating the standard 6 meals a day. But because I was keto adapted, I was fat adapted, and I was able to control my hunger, I was like, okay, this is the perfect opportunity for me to test myself. Now, I did my whole prep myself. I was on it. By the time I stepped on stage, my overall caloric intake I was on about 85% fats. I was eating very, very little protein at this stage. Now, when I walked on stage, I had my body fat, because I tested this, I think it was around 3.7, 3.8 body fat. That's what I was walking around. My body fat was extremely low. Now, if you ask anybody, they would say to you, Jesus, you're going to end up having a heart. You're going to die. This is not sustainable. It's not healthy. Guys, trust me when I say this. I was able to walk around, speak with people. I was doing airings. I was doing content. I was completely relaxed, and I mean completely relaxed. The reason why I was completely relaxed is because my fats were really, really high, like really, really high. I dropped my protein all the way down to 10% because at that stage, I wasn't focusing on building muscle. I was just prioritizing my health and getting as lean as possible. So because my fats were really, really high, and even though I was still in a deficit. I was probably on, if we're talking about calories, I was probably on around maybe 900 calories on that day. But believe me, I didn't notice it, and there was no insulin spike because I was on that amount of fats. So I was able to maintain that leanness at 3% body fat. The guys that were on stage beside me, these people were taking out fish oils out of their diet literally before they stepped on stage. These people were ready to collapse, and I mean they were ready to collapse.
Wow.
No word of a lie,
Jeez.
right? They couldn't even hold a pose.
Wow.
The minute the show was over, they were in the backstage. They had this room where it was full of like processed food, donuts, pizzas, sweets, jellies, you name it, everything. They were like wolves around the carcass. They could not wait to eat this food. Honestly, they couldn't wait to eat this food. Now I competed in this bodybuilding competition. This was an enhanced bodybuilding competition. I was going up against guys that were taking drugs, they were taking steroids, TRT. I just wanted to test myself against these people and see where I would come. Yeah. Guys, I came in the top 3. Top 3 on a carnivore diet. And literally we went out to an all buffet where it just had steaks, meats. I must have put away about 5 pounds of meat that night. Easily. The next day I woke up, guys, I looked even better. I had these muscle bellies I'd never thought I'd had seen in my life. I could see my abs, thick abs. Guys, I looked insane. My friend the guy that was on stage at me, the guy that was on stage at me, he rang me the next day. He says to me, I'm in a food coma. He stepped on the scales. This guy was 20 pounds up on the scales in water weight. 20 pounds. He put on 20 pounds of water. This guy, it took him nearly a week for his body to adapt and get back to where it was meant to be. Absolutely insane.
Wow. Well, you
All this just to win a trophy. I was like, no. And
sure.
that's why I'm always saying to people, like, if you're ever doing a bodybuilding competition, make sure you prioritize your health. Who gives a shit about getting lean? Prioritize your health, because you will get very, very lean. Because you will get lean, and it won't affect this. But I can tell you right now, these people were like zombies when they got on the stage. They were like zombies. And when you think about it, when people get to the last 6 weeks of the prep, they're dropping their food down, right? So they're in a calorie deficit. They're removing the energy source, which is the carbohydrate. So they're only focusing on protein and vegetables here. So you can imagine how they're feeling. And if they're taking fats out of the diet, you can only imagine what these people are feeling like. And why do
So
you
they're
think?
basically not even they're in that kind of in that limbo state in between
Yeah,
where they're not even in ketosis and they're not even
yeah. But when you think about it,
Almost like zombies.
yeah, but when you think about the damage that they've done to their bodies before they step on stage, why do you think they have to top up on carbohydrates every 2 hours? Do you ever see them? They're eating all the rice cakes, the honey, all that crap, but they're literally eating every 2 hours because their coaches are saying to them, like, listen, now it's time to top up. We need to top up now. We need to add the carbohydrates in. The only thing I had before I stepped on stage was a little bit of salt on my tongue, and I had no issues. I had no issues with cramping. I had no issues with doing a pose. I had unbelievable muscle bellies. I was able to pose, no problem. So when you look at the information that we've been told about training, about performance, about aesthetics, about looking a certain way, guys, trust me when I say this, it's complete and utter bullshit. Bullshit.
Bollocks, yeah.
Yeah, it's rubbish. Absolute rubbish. And
Here's an idea for you, Mark. Here's an idea for you. How about you expand your horizons a bit? You probably even do this already, or you probably thought of it. Expand your since you've got all that experience as a bodybuilder, and you can help other people be a healthy, more of a healthy transition to when they cut for those last couple months, which is much healthier than doing it the other mainstream way, where you're going to pass out on stage.
well, I'm working. I've never done this. I have a female now that's currently going through this. We're actually doing our first show next year, and she actually came to me and said to me, "Would you mind prepping me for a bodybuilding company?" This is my first ever prepping somebody, but I'm absolutely convinced
Wow.
that when I took this lady on, we're gonna win the show because I know exactly what I need to do. I'm absolutely convinced, and she's from
Yeah.
America. I'm gonna go over and be in the stands, be in the arena, and I'm gonna make sure that she wins it because this will literally blow up my profile. I know it will because
Wow.
the way she's doing it, she's not in a deficit. She's doing it the right way. We're focusing on putting a lot of muscle mass on at the moment. I'm going to put her through the 3 month prep where she's going to be in a slight deficit, but we're going to do it my way. Like I said, the fats are going to be really, really high. We're going to decrease the protein because at that stage, we're not building muscle anymore. At that stage, we're trying to get the leanest as possible. Like really lean. Now, if you bring a woman's body fat below, say, 8%, that's dangerous, really, really dangerous, because that's going to
Yes.
affect the hormones. But it's only dangerous if you're on a low fat diet. It's not dangerous if you're on a high fat diet. You see where I'm going here?
Yeah.
Interesting, yeah.
So if your
Yeah.
fats are high, it's
Interesting.
not going to impact the hormones. It's not going to impact the menstrual cycle. It's not going to impact the metabolism. Everything's going to work perfectly well. It's only if you decrease the fats, bring the proteins up, because people are convinced you're going to get energy from eating protein. You're not going to get any energy from eating protein. You're going to feel like shit. We can only get energy from two areas: carbohydrates and proteins. Or sorry, carbohydrates and fats. But the difference is
Yes.
one is essential, one is not. And one can optimize your hormones the right way, which is fats. Carbohydrates are actually going to damage the hormones. So it makes sense. Increase
So,
the fats, decrease the carbohydrates, and your hormones will work perfectly well. She's going to step on stage.
but
I'm
I
telling
mean,
you now, she's going to step on stage
wow.
next year at about 5 to 6% body fat. She's still going to maintain a menstrual cycle. She's still going to have her periods. Our hormones are going to be functioning very, very well. Our mental health is going to function very, very well. And everybody else on stage is going to have all these issues. All this to win a trophy.
Wow.
It's wrong. It's
Beautiful.
complete.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that quickly about the whole. So for that 6 week cut that the mainstream do, these bodybuilders, they're having no fat at all, right? Like nothing.
It's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, like,
Crazy.
shouldn't they know better? Because we've all heard about rabbit starvation here. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes, of
And
course.
see the
It's a
thing
real
is when
thing.
you
So
and see
obviously that takes time. Yeah.
yeah, and see the thing is, sorry, Theon. The thing is when you look at these bodybuilders, you look at them and you're like, they're healthy. But I can tell you right now, they're far from healthy. Trust me, because as I said, I stood before beside 24 of them. Like I said, some of these were enhanced, some of these were literally ready to die. They were struggling.
Yeah.
TRT, guys, it's not worth it. Trust me, it's not worth it.
Yeah. With the whole, I want to bridge this into this. I think it's important for those we're transitioning to carnivore with gut issues in general, like I went through. Yeah, let's talk about that rabbit starvation though, because I think it's important to talk about, because when I going back to the first time I did carnivore, that 4 month period, like I said, it was like transitioning with like lean meats and stuff. It wasn't lean meats all the time. I'd have to go in and out. But there was periods for a few weeks where I ate nothing but kangaroo meat, and there was times where you feel the starvation, like not the starvation, like you're eating a lot of protein, but the whole rabbit starvation thing, because kangaroo meat is extremely lean, like a rabbit meat. There's like no fat in it, so the once I started having more fats, like it took, how you get that aha moment, that sort of like the penny drops moment. I had that moment when when I was 6 weeks in, when I started eating pork, right? I rarely eat pork, but the point of the story is, one time I went to the organic butcher and he got some grass-fed, pasture-raised organic pork, which is very hard to find anywhere, really. You have to find the right butcher for that. I cooked it up, some roast belly, pork belly in the oven, and the next day, uh, it was like a light bulb moment, and I think it was the ketones. It was just that my body just utilizing all that fat that I had been starved from for 6 weeks prior, just having kangaroo meat. And there was times where I had to actually have things like coconut oil, because that's all I could handle. I couldn't have, like I said, I couldn't even have tallow. Like even a teaspoon of tallow, right, would actually give me like pain, like huge amounts of pain. That's how bad I was, And when you guys see the images, I don't know when I'm going to release these reels, you're going to realize how is that? How does that even fit in a gallbladder, which is usually about maybe that size? I had all these stones that jam packed in them. So when I had the fat from the pork, my brain, it's like that movie Limitless with Bradley Cooper. It was like, wow, it's like, holy crap, man.
Yep.
Like, that's what it feels like to be in ketosis. And that's probably the first time in my life I really felt like deep ketosis, and for these animal fats to create ketones in my body. And I just felt amazing. But the only thing is, I was having gallbladder attacks.
Yeah.
So kind of like but ketosis, guys, like Mark was saying, in a bodybuilding style, that's the way to go. Like that's high fat, sustainable for the body.
I think we underestimate how important fat is. I think that's what the problem is. I think people don't understand how important fat is into the diet. And what we were told about fat, I wish people would move on from it. Because this is something that really really pisses me off. When we're told that we need to limit
Mark,
fat.
it's sad. I was at a beach house the other day with some friends, and met a girl that which was just a friend, a mutual friend, and we're just making dinner in the kitchen. I was frying up some salmon for the guys. Anyway, long story short, I just reached for the fridge and I just grabbed the butter. I just snacked on some butter, and I just met this lady for the first time, and she's like, "Oh, aren't you a health coach? You should know better. Why are you eating butter straight from the fridge?" You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's the stuff I deal with all the time. you know, and it's just sad because, and look, it pisses me off too, Mark, because, but it doesn't just piss me off, it saddens me. You know why, Mark? Because, as we've all heard of Project 226, back in the 70s, how the sugar companies bought out these bloody Harvard professors and these scientists. They paid them thousands of dollars
know.
We
to
know.
twist the narrative about saturated fat. And to think that people still don't know about this shit 50 years later, like, wake up, guys. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
holy crap, people still don't know. Obviously, a lot of people like us know about this now, but 50 years, and they've done so well to brainwash people so well that it's like a self-perpetual
It is.
motion throughout the families and generations over the decades and years. They don't even need to brainwash people anymore because it's already brainwashed, so that the family will brainwash the kids. And that's what happened with me. It passes on to the next generation. Oh, saturated fat will clog up your heart, you know, or your arteries and shit. It's not good for us. So it's just fucking, it's
And
just
they're
so
still teaching that in schools. They're still teaching the healthy plate and food pyramid. And those poor students, they're almost like you were describing, Mark, as those other bodybuilders that you were describing. They're walking around like a zombie. The students at school, because they're told to avoid fat, so they're told to eat the vegetables. And by the end of it, they're lacking energy. They've got no energy. They want to run around. So they take on these energy drinks. They start drinking these high caffeinated drinks. Then they're out to sit. In the UK, it's called GCSEs. They're public examinations that they've worked all this academic life up to the age of 16, and they can't think, they can't focus. So they're the future, but we're still not educating them.
Yeah.
You know, they often ask me, "Sir, you're ripped. I want to be like you. What have I got to do?" I said, "Well, I can't tell you because I'm going to get my knuckles rapped by the head teacher. They'll pull me in and say, Mr. Smart, you can't speak that." But the vegan in the classroom can preach his veganism. The vegetarian can preach their vegetarianism to the kids. They're allowed to. But as soon as I mentioned my way of eating, whoa, you've got to stop. Because we're going to have parents ringing saying that you're educating them to eat all the wrong foods.
Yeah.
Even though they look at me and see me being the pinnacle of health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's why I got out of education. That's why I put it in that book that I've written, Mark. I keep preaching to sort of say this is the case and this needs to be heard. So sorry to get back on my soapbox, guys, but it annoys me with the children, you know.
Yeah, no, you're dead right, Duncan, and this is why I had to move out of the gym industry myself. Like I couldn't work in the industry at the moment. What I'm currently seeing at the moment, I'm seeing nothing has changed pretty much from where I see. I'm seeing people coming in that are obese, like really obese, and they're been looked after by these PTs. Now, what really frustrates me is these PTs should know this. They're putting these people on treadmills and they're getting them to run. You know what I mean? This is no word of lie. This is a true story. This must have been about 6 months ago, at least 6 months ago. This woman came in and I'd say she was around, I don't know, around 16, maybe 17 stone. I don't know what that is in pounds, probably about 250 pounds, something like that. This PT had her wearing a weight vest, and got her to run. You know what I mean? And I was like, how is this in this day and age, how is this allowed to happen? It really is. And then what really annoys me, I seen this in the summer. I seen all these obese women running. And you can clearly see it in their face. They don't want to do this. They're struggling. They're mentally just struggling. You can see the pain in their face. And all you want to do is just go over to them, give them a hug, and just say, listen, stop. Just stop. Go home, eat properly, and just walk. That's all you need to do. Why can't we not do this? And this really frustrates me when I put up a video and I talk about cholesterol or fat, and immediately it gets taken down. I get a strike. But if I talk about the sugar diet, it goes viral. You know what I mean? So if I just say, okay, the sugar diet is the best diet in the world.
You get a notification. So you actually get a notification saying, "Oh, you're not allowed to post this crap."
Yeah. Yeah, and like Duncan said, and I mentioned this earlier with the kids, we can see that hate is getting bigger. You can see people are really, really struggling at that age. People at that age are struggling with their mental health. They won't talk to you about it, but you can see it. They're struggling with their exams. I see this with my own daughter. My daughter's only 21 years of age. She's in college. She's really, really stressed, but I can see what the problem is. I know how to fix the problem, but she doesn't want to listen to me because she's convinced that she needs to eat the way everybody else needs to eat. But I'm always saying to her, listen, if you just eat this way, this will have an impact on your mental health. This, honestly, you'll fly through your
Yeah, that's
grades.
sad,
You'll
Mark.
fly through it.
Yeah.
And
Being a parent like yourself, it must be hard.
oh
You know.
man, it's terrible because I do the shopping every
Mm.
week because she can't afford it. She's not working. And honestly, it kills me when I'm going into the shop and I have to buy this shit for her. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Now, it's okay when people say to me, don't buy it.
Um,
No, I was just going to say it's okay when they're young because you can control that situation. But she's an adult. So if I don't buy it for her, she's still going to get it from somewhere. So I'm like, how do I balance that? So I try and do my best. I'm like, okay, what's the best solution here? So I'm like, okay, I just need to instead of buying a processed food, I'll buy her the clean food, like the lean source of protein, the clean carbohydrates. At least it's not too bad. But I would really like to see her just eliminate all this shit and just go towards what I'm doing, because you can clearly see with what I'm doing with my business and how I'm looking and how I'm feeling. That's what she wants. But I'm hoping eventually, the more I keep on doing this and I be a role model to her, she'll just snap out of it and she'll be like, okay, now I'm ready to change. I'm hoping. Fingers crossed.
yeah. Yeah, look, I think it helps to, and look, if I come across any reels or anything, I'll definitely send them your way that maybe has a person in the video of similar age to your daughter, maybe, early 20s or even a late teenager, even someone like Aaliyah, that she's, she's only 15 years old? She's
16, yeah.
Yeah, the lady, and she's doing the carnivore diet and stuff. So I think finding people of similar age and maybe sending their videos to her, I don't know, that might help her kind of think, oh yeah, if it works for these people, the similar age than me, other girls, young girls like me, helping me, them mentally, maybe it might help me. So yeah, I mean, obviously it's a long. Look, it took me a long time to reverse the brainwashing that I had since a kid, that saturated fat's bad for you. It took me many years, guys, and I'm sure it took many people as well, multiple years. I used to love putting margarine on my toast as a teenager. It used to be my favorite thing. I used to have, man, I was a carboholic. Sometimes I'd have 10 pieces of toast, just, just pile on the margarine. Yeah, the healthy margarine, heart healthy margarine. Yeah, gets you the heart healthy, But what a load of bullshit, like we're just being brainwashed, just these generations. It's just so sad to watch. And obviously that's not everyone, right? But a lot of people have, millions and millions of people over the past 15, hundreds of millions probably, obviously we've got certain countries, third world countries, where they grew up with a lot of animal proteins and animal fats. So they, that's bullshit to hear, if they heard that sort of saturated fat thing, they know that's a load of crap. So, get to everyone, but for the most part, and like you said, the kids these days, they're stressed, they got mental health issues. Suicide is it's never been this bad in this whole entire era of time. It's so sad to watch all these kids. And Duncan, I just wanted to say, well done on the Sunnies. Like I think we got the same one. They're the same ones. But
Well, although I say my health's improved incredibly, one thing is my reading eyesight has never really changed. I think it's just an age thing, and I spend so long reading and late at night. So these are my reading glasses, but I thought I'll make them look a little bit trendier with red lenses. But it does help when you're looking at the screen, though, doesn't it? It helps massively for blue light.
I do believe in this, and for those who haven't heard of Dr. Jack Kruse, he's a brain surgeon, and he talks about the light and all how important it really is. But I think it's obvious the diet is obviously big in my opinion. Diet is a big part of things, but it's also these other things like take a look at the average teenager today, and we've all done it. I haven't been the perfect example of this recently because I've been on my phone editing reels and stuff sometimes late at night, but the average kid or the average teenager on social media late at night or watching Netflix or watching TV, they're looking at a bright screen past the time of sunset where the sun has gone down. That's messing up their circadian rhythm. That's messing up their melatonin production. That's messing up, deep sleep So, and all these things that just will get just rattled and just shaken in the
Yeah.
body, and it won't actually be natural. It won't be optimal at all.
Yeah.
And like that's also a of mental health. It's not just the food we eat; it's all these other
Yeah.
things, you know.
I mean, that's one thing I never do. When I wake up in the morning, I never look at my phone. Never. My phone just stays
Yeah.
to the side. I'm waking up. I'm going for a walk. If the sun shines out in the morning, that's all I need. And this was something I mentioned to the carnivore community when I signed up at the very, very beginning. I was like, listen, guys, you won't get me on this all the time because I've no interest. I'm not interested in having these. That's why you never see me on these conversations, because I'm hardly on my phone these days. I'm only on my phone when I need to be, when I'm doing a podcast, or
Yeah.
I'm looking after clients, or I'm answering emails. That's the only time I'm on my phone. I couldn't give a shit what's going on in the world. Trust me, couldn't give a shit. I get all my information from clients. That's all I get. So if I didn't get my information off clients, I wouldn't have a clue what's going on in the world, because I honestly don't give a shit. I'd rather be in my own little bubble. I'm happy, and I want to stay that way. So there's nothing on social media that I need to know about. Nothing. Trust me. I couldn't give a shit. I'm at a stage in my life now where, as I said, I'm just happy. I'm happy. Emotionally, physically, mentally, everything is just pinpoint. For me, when I looked at in the past, honestly, I could have been on my phone. I could have been on my phone for about 12 hours. My screen time was around 12 hours. Nowadays, you're probably looking at about maybe 2.5 hours max. That's it. I never look at my phone, honestly. I make sure I have that little bit of self-love to myself in the morning. I go for a walk. I look after myself. I go to the gym. I make sure everybody's okay. And then when I'm ready to jump on this and I'm like, okay, now it's time to work, that's when I'll switch on my phone. That's when I'm like, okay, now I'm ready for the big bad. I'm ready for the big bad world. Let's get on this. And then when I'm finished, she'll tell you the phone gets switched off. Couldn't care less. If anybody wants to get in touch with me, Instagram messages, emails, I'll deal with it the next day. I want to spend time with my family. I want to spend time with my family. I want to spend a bit of time with herself. I want to go for a walk. I missed out on all that when I used to be selfish when I used to be selfish. I'll sit on my phone all the time. I used to go to the gym. It was all about me. I have to look a certain way. I have to know what's on my phone. I have to know what the sports result is. That was honestly that was ruining my life. The best thing I ever did was move away from all that shit.
Good.
You know what I mean? But anyway, Theon, it's been amazing talking to you. But I want to ask you one more question, because I want to be a little bit respectful for your time. I know it's a little bit late over there at the moment. Before we leave,
That's fine, Mark. There's no rush. There's no rush. It's fine.
I'm just gonna leave you with this. If there's anybody listening to this and they're in a similar situation like you, and they're saying to themselves, like, I might actually try this, I might actually give it a go, what advice would you give these people?
You have to get into it slowly. You can't, you just can't expect it's going to change your life overnight. Things like carnivore and even just animal based in general. I think you have to just slowly transition. That's the main thing. Transitioning is very important, and not to be scared of doing a bit of these alternative medicine practices during this transition period to see how to optimize things in this transition time. Like things like I said before, TCM, traditional Chinese medicine and stuff like that, has helped me transition during this time. And look, I'm not going to say I'm like 100% anti-plants, because I have used a bit of herbal medicine in the past, and I haven't used it in a while, because the healthier I've become over the years, the less I've needed this stuff, right? This stuff is a medicine, hence the word medicine. You're not going to take medicine every day. You're only going to take it when you really need to. Things like these digestive issues and stuff like that. So for people who actually, looking into doing the carnivore diet, take it slowly. It's a long-term project. Like you said, Mark, 6 months. It's a 6-month project, but slowly to transition is, I think, the big takeaway here. Like Bart K says, 4 to 6 weeks. You got to transition things slowly. Get your gut accustomed to it. Get your gallbladder. Get your stomach acid up online. Everything, all the cogs and the gears. You have to start greasing up a bit to start. And just all the crap you've eaten. Like it's also hard to let go of all these comfort foods we've all been used to eating. So it's going to take some time for you to cleanse that out of your mind, out of these addictions, to break free from that, and to get used to these. To grow your taste buds. After a while, I actually enjoyed eating organ meats. It took a couple months. At the start, I nearly puked, but after a couple of months, my taste bud craved the taste of organ meats. So it takes time for your body to adjust to these things, right? So yeah, that's my take on it. Just slowly, it's a slow transition to these things.
Amazing advice. And where can people go to find you?
At the moment, Instagram. My handle is Theon Ajax, one word, Theon Ajax, and just chuck me a DM, and I'm willing to give you a free, no obligation discovery call to see if I can actually to help you to what state you're in at the moment, and to see where we can go from there, and hopefully we can get you up on the program and start making some transformations in your life. It's not just about health here. This is about everything. Once you take control of put the power in your hands to change what you eat, it's not just about your physical state of health, right? It's not just about like Duncan, he's an athlete. He understands, increasing endurance, strength, performance. It's not just about that. It's not just about, decreasing inflammation, sleeping better. This is everything. This is like your whole life will change. Doing a diet that is fit for your genetics, right? Everything else change, like your mental state, your emotional state, spiritually, like, I don't know about you guys, but like doing the carnivore over these past few years, holy crap, man. I mean, I've never felt more connected spiritually, more one with my mind, mind, brain coherence, as they say. All these things change, and then you have a better quality of life. You have better quality of relationships around you, friendships. You have more, passion and drive and fire towards the things you actually want to do in this life, your career, your hobbies, everything actually gets better. So this is not just about your health. This is about your entire life, and actually making the most out of it, optimizing your life and on this short time we have, and being grateful for the time we have, and just loving every bit of it. And just, I really appreciate the time you've given me, Mark, on here, and it's good to meet you guys, and we'll definitely keep in touch.
Amazing. And I'll put those links below. Anything else you want to say, Duncan, before we go?
No, I think it was everything. I was smiling at the end when you're talking about the spiritual connection, because I do think with the ketones of the mind and the pineal gland and the crystals, but it's something I've never spoke to Mark about. But yeah, there's definitely a correlation there without a shadow of doubt, because we do feel better all around, don't we? So yeah, I agree with what you're saying there, Theo.
Yeah, and I would echo both what you guys both said. The biggest thing I got out of this was how relaxed I am about this. In everything, I don't get stressed out anymore. I don't have these panic attacks anymore. I'm just totally relaxed. I'm able to have a conversation with people now without getting aggressive. So that was the biggest factor for me. I was like, okay, I'm so relaxed now. I'm not getting heated. I don't have the anxiety was a big thing for me, guys. I would let little things just get to me, because I had a rugby background, and I just had that. How can I explain it? When I went out on the pitch, I just had that animal feeling. I was ready to like annihilate people. I was ready to kill people, and
red light, red mist.
just red light. And every time someone disagreed with me, even though I was having a conversation, I would get really heated about it. I'd be like, I'm gonna end up like that kind of way. Whereas now I'm just relaxed. Like me and you can have a conversation, and you might disagree.
Ironic.
Go ahead, sorry.
Isn't it the irony? Don't you love the irony of it though? Because you'd think, oh, hang on a second, meat eater eating all this meat, it would make you more aggressive and all this stuff. But you take a look at some of these vegans, not pigeonholing all vegans. Obviously, I have a lot of respect for the people who I used to be vegan, so I can't hate all of them. But a lot of the plant-based dieters and vegans with low cholesterol, I was there. My mental state, it was very unpredictable and unstable. I think not all the time, but there was times where I found that, like you said, Mark, like you more agitated, more irritated very easily. Your anger management is a bit more unstable, and and you're not eating meat, right? So that's meant to be healthy, but you're eating a ton of meat, and you feel more relaxed, you feel more calm. It's just crazy. You can't believe it until you try
Yeah.
it, right? So,
That's true.
I just believe if everybody ate this way, the world would be in a better place. I firmly believe that.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Well, Theon, as I said,
Mm.
it's been an absolute pleasure. I wish you all the best in your business.
Thanks, man.
Keep up the good work. I'll be watching your reels very, very closely. I'm glad you're in the carnivore community because we need more people like yourself. Duncan, it's always been a pleasure. We will be doing more in the future,
Thank you very much.
100%. And yeah, I'll speak to you
Looking
very
forward
soon,
to it.
guys.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. Thank you. See
Bye
you.
bye, guys. Bye bye.
Chat. Yeah.
Bye.
Cheers.